Right, we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our weekly webinar. It's 12 o'clock. It's Friday, the 26th of June. The noonday gun has just gone off here in Cape Town. So very warm welcome to all of you. Today we are on day 92 of lockdown, alert level 3, as a result of COVID-19. It's shaken many of our world, and whether we're in business or personal lives have been shaken up. So the economy is opening up, and we've seen announcements coming for restaurants opening, cinemas, travel, learning, conferences, and certainly the real estate sector is mostly open for business, but with restrictions, strict rules and limitations. However, we still can't smoke. Now that might be a good thing, but not a good thing for taxes. So maybe the government's missing out on that part. Good thing for your health though. So you've logged on to Real Estate Investor Talk. It's our weekly webinar brought to you by REMAG in conjunction with Let's Talk Property and Eland Property Group. My name is Neil Peterson, and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Real Estate Investor Mag and the REI and REI Mag digital platform, and I'm going to be your host and moderator today. So REMAG helps real estate investors, buyers, and property practitioners keep up to date with the latest news, information, resources, education, technology, and property tools to keep you at the forefront of your property game. We cover everything real estate, from residential, commercial, or offshore property investment, and we cover good news, bad news, education, insights, and principles to use for real estate investors, buyers, property practitioners, and the property industry in South Africa and the globe. We have international audience as well. So today we have an important announcement for REI Talk fan, as this webinar will be the last REI Talk in this series on a Friday. We will return in a different guise on Wednesdays. So the new Let's Talk Property webinar brand will be hosted by both Derek Watts and myself on alternate weeks. So REI Talk and the Eland Property Group have officially joined forces with the new Let's Talk Property webinar brand. So together we want to deliver the best thought leaders in real estate, the best content as South Africa's biggest property webinar host in the property industry. Even more expert knowledge, more synergy and insights on all the hottest property topics, all in one convenient time slot every week. It's going to be called Webinar Wednesday. So the new webinar brand, officially called Let's Talk Property, brought to you by Real Estate Investor and the Eland Property Group, will take place every Wednesday. Our first one starting on Wednesday, the 8th of July, from 11 o'clock to 12:30 every week. And it will be 1 hour, 30 minutes to cover the latest on the burning topics. So that's quite exciting. We're really excited about this. There is a list that you can see of the topics that are going to be upcoming. So today our webinar topic is the best education options to make money in real estate. Meet the property coaches and educators. And we've got a fantastic panel who I will introduce to you very shortly. So today we are here to learn about this particular education property market sector and hear from our panelists. They will announce themselves and introduce themselves very shortly. But firstly, I want to welcome to you, the audience, and we look forward to your participation in today's webinar. And to our audience, for the best audio and visual quality, please switch off all other streaming videos or anything else that slows down your internet. If you do log off for any reason, you can re-enter the webinar with the same link, okay? So on the bottom right of your screen, you'll see there is a Q&A icon for any questions that you would like to pose to the panelists. So please identify the panelists and post your question, and we will deal with them in the last section of the webinar. There's also a chat box on the left for any general queries, comments, technical issues, or any important links or even contact details that need to be shared. There will also be a poll with multiple choice questions that will pop up on your screen periodically, and we will ask you to vote during the webinar. So please participate in that, as your feedback is really important to us. If you want to get replays of this webinar and other previous webinars that are available for those of you that are either came late onto the show, or those who couldn't make it, or had to log out early on this webinar, you can still view this webinar and other replays in our series. It's posted on the remag.co platform. Just go to shows drop-down link where you find REI Talk, and this webinar will be posted after the show. So let's give a little bit of background to investing in real estate. As we know, is an asset class that can pay you an income without your presence. So there are multiple property education courses and training options for first-time home buyers and investors wanting to break into the lucrative property market. And there are also many options for more experienced, seasoned investors looking to expand or diversify their property portfolio. It is also, unfortunately, an industry that has been fraught with hype, abuse, and misinformation. And you could be bamboozled or even scammed if you don't verify the authenticity of the trainer and the course. Every property investor has a story to tell, and I'm sure all of our panelists that are here, who are great investors themselves, also have a great property story to tell, and hopefully a lot of them will share that with you today. So my property story started in the 90s, where I bought and sold properties for profit until 1998, when the interest rates peaked at around 25.5%. Can you believe it? Everybody ran from the hills for property. And in the beginning of 2002, I then left my senior management job at Naspers after 18 years to explore becoming an entrepreneur, a property entrepreneur. And during this time, I needed to discover my next best thing. And I came across this book over here called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I think so many have come across that particular book. And then I read this book over here called Real Estate Riches. And then shortly thereafter, I was also introduced to a property developer who's developing around 250 flats around a kilometer from where I was living. And I bought 10 flats, followed by another 12. And then I had 22 with 5,000 rand deposits on them. And it was right next door to Old Mutual head office in Cape Town, who all of them were employees of Old Mutual, and they became my tenants. And that was the start of really the turn of my property journey. And I spent a lot of time thereafter following the different methodologies of investing, and spent a lot of time attending every seminar, every course that I could go locally. I went to every single one of them, locally and internationally, just to improve my knowledge and skills. And I think the same has happened a lot with a lot of our panelists today. And as a result of that, my investment journey, that's when we decided to launch Real Estate Investor Magazine. Can you believe this is the first edition, guys? The first edition of Real Estate Investor Mag. And it says here, don't buy real estate without this magazine. So thanks to Dr. Russ, who introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Andrew Waite, and who ran a magazine called Personal Real Estate Investor in the US. And of course, the rest is all history. 13 years later, we're still around, even though in a digital format today. I mean, our last printed version was this particular one over here. So before we get onto a panel, and to cut a long story short of my story, I went through many highs and lows as I grew my portfolio too aggressively and too quickly, and along came the 2008-9 global financial crisis. Kicked me into touch. I was forced to sell many properties undervalued and restructure my portfolio. The long and short of it is that many lessons were learned, and more lessons were learned through rather my mistakes. And I believe that's where real lessons are learned. And I'm excited to hear from each one of our panelists about their stories as well. And so it's wonderful. So today, let's get to our panel. Today, our panel consists of experienced property investors. We have, and first and foremost, every single one of our panel are property investors. They're not necessarily somebody just trying to sell you a course. They say, this is the way that you should do it. Follow my way. And everybody has a slightly different methodology in terms of that. So our panel is going to share, uncover, and debate questions as, how do I break into the market as a first-time investor? What are the different types of investing options that I have that we can explore? What is the right education to achieve my investing goals? So I think today we're sitting with some of the best property conditions with the lowest interest rates that we've had in years. And it may be cheaper to buy than rent today. So without further ado, I would like to first introduce each one of our panelists. I'm going to ask each one of them to introduce themselves, starting with Andrew.
Awesome. How's it, Neil? How's it, everyone? From my side, Neil, I just want to say a massive thank you to you and the Real Estate Investor Magazine for making this all happen. I think it's awesome. They've got all the experts on this call. So yes, Neil, I am representing the Property Academy. Now, I've been investing full-time for 15 years in both England and South Africa. I bought my first property back in 2001. Now, my background, Neil, is I was actually a sound engineer. I'm here from Johannesburg, and Joburg being the most beautiful city in the country, obviously. And look, I was a sound engineer. I was working 7 days a week. I was passionate about it. But when it became a job for me, Neil, and I started getting my wife to carry my speakers for me up and downstairs, I soon realized, maybe I've got to do something a bit different, right? So I bought that property back in 2001 in Durban. I went to London, to the UK. It was meant to be a one-year gap year. As my wife had just finished her degree, we went to London. And that's where I met Sean Thompson, the guy from the Legacy Education Alliance. And I found a way, and Sean, you were doing properties up north in Burnley. And I thought, if Sean can do it, I can do it. So I got stuck in with Legacy back in those days. And the network really helped. I was a young 25-year-old in debt. And the network really in the UK helped me build a profitable portfolio in a place called Grimsby. Now, I spent 8 years full-time just building my business. I built a letting business. I built a property sourcing business. I was living in London, traveling up and down 3 hours every single week, to a point where I left the sound engineering industry. I became a full-time property investor. You could say about 2006, I started doing joint ventures with people from Ireland, Scotland, London, because as a young 25-year-old, I didn't have any capital. So I was forced to be creative, right? I was forced to learn how to use other people's money. And I started a letting agency from my room with Simone, my wife, and we built up a business. So back in 2013, I decided to go back to South Africa because of the weather, basically. And I've still got my UK business over there. So I'm still going back to the UK every 2 or 3 months, building my portfolio there, building a nest egg over there in the UK. I moved back to South Africa and realized there was a gap in the market. So that's when I started the SA Property Investors Network, working with Legacy Education Alliance. And then I decided to follow my own passion, my dreams. I kicked off the Property Academy. I'm still investing myself, Neil, so I practice what I preach. I was viewing properties yesterday. I put together an installment sale agreement yesterday. I buy and sell. I love doing multi-lets. Now, Neil, I don't go do the big deals. I'm not interested in the 50 million rands and the 30 million. I like the 1.5 millions, the millions. I like it where the market moves a lot. So that's the space I played, mainly residential at that level.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andrew. Wonderful. Yaku, please introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a privilege to be here. Neil, thank you for hosting us today. I'm very, very excited about today. I think we're going to have very, very interesting conversations. I'm the founder of Prosperity Enterprises. Prosperity Enterprises is a property investment, structuring, and education company. And what we do is we help people to build their property portfolios. And to tell you a little bit about my story, I bought my first property about 10 years ago. And I can remember it like yesterday. That property transaction that I did made me more money than an entire year's salary. And that is when I knew property is something that I want to be in. I've been in corporate for quite some time before moving over to be a full-time property investor. My background is finance. So I was a chief financial officer for an international wholesale firm. And during that time, I was fortunate enough that I could part-time build my property portfolio. But I wanted to get to a place where I can be financially free and where I can actually do what I love doing. And that is exactly where I found myself today.
Wonderful. Thanks, Yaku. Ezra, introduce yourself and tell us your story, man.
Thanks a lot, Neil, and thanks to everybody who attended here today. Look, I say that I'm a real estate investor, and I also help people learn how to invest in real estate and build personal wealth through real estate investment. We do that through our savvy, systems that investors can be able to use and plug and play. Which we just build like systems together to teach you how to buy real estate, to build your portfolio and also build your real estate businesses. But otherwise, my story is very short. I'm probably the youngest on the panel, and there's a reason for that. And the thing is, I started my first business in fashion actually in I think was it 2015. And it got successful, but it failed at some point because it just came down crashing at some point because I didn't have systems, I didn't have teams around me, I didn't know how to do all of that stuff. And this is why I'm very, very passionate about building systems. And I think that is something that's very, very important. And after that, I went after like a mild depression there. That's when I started reading a lot of books. I was reading a Robert Kiyosaki book also. I met my sister, actually invited me to one of the webinars where I see one of the guys, Leroy here, where he's one of the guys at Legacy, who was busy doing those webinars telling us about the power of property and what it can do. And I think one of the things that I picked up for the entire webinar was that one of the guys I like is Jay-Z. I don't know people who listen to music. He had a mentor called Warren Buffett. And I was very, very interested on that idea to say, okay, so this guy I really like actually has a mentor. So I probably need to get a mentor myself, to get myself going. Long story short, when my first business failed, I met my first mentor. He taught me exactly what are systems and business and all that stuff. And I told me exactly what failed. And he told me, look, you need to invest in yourself as much as you can. And after doing that, when you're starting your next business, then you must have a mentor when you're doing that. And actually, that's how I managed to look for mentors everywhere around. Went to LinkedIn, sent people messages, Facebook, nothing happened. And I actually ran into Neil, and which was a very, very great story because Neil helped me buy my first property. But I must confess and say some of the things that Neil said actually in the first 3 months, I didn't actually do it. He told me to do this, and then I went the other way, which is something I'm going to talk about today, about some of the common mistakes and misconceptions about mentoring and mentee relationships. Otherwise, long story short, I went from there to have other different mentors. I worked with developers. I'm now developing my portfolio also. I'm working on deals right now. I think we're working on deals with around 500 million rand currently. And we're looking to expand from here. And we also have an online university where people can come online and be able to learn how to use the systems that they can plug and play and learn how to invest in real estate. I help them to use all their creative financing. One of my goals was to never have a job. So I've never had a job up to now. And I think that, it is possible, but it's tough, I must tell you. Especially because, as Andrew said before, you have to learn all the creative financing ways, partner up with people and do all these other things because obviously you don't have proof of income that the bank is going to be looking for until you build up that sort of financial muscle at some point. But otherwise, that's my long story short.
Wonderful.
And I hope I managed to explain it. Yeah, thanks
Absolutely.
a lot.
Thanks, Issa. Great having you on the show. Grant, introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Neil. So thanks everyone for joining us today. So my story is sort of similar length to Andrew's. I did my property education back in 2005, but having come from firstly Boksburg by the sea, so in the far east Rand, and then moving into finance and studying at Rand Afrikaans University, so UJ. But I realized very early on, so sort of high school time, that I wanted to get into property. It was always something that I was interested in and watched these complexes being built in Boksburg, and it really intrigued me. Moving to the UK in 2002, into banking finance and hated every single minute of it. So where Ezra said he never wanted a job, I had jobs and I wasn't very good at any of them, and mainly because I hated it. But then moved into property investments in the UK in 2005, actually funny off the back of some education that I went through Legacy and where I met Sean Thompson, who we chat often as also. But 2005 came, and then you mentioned 2008. We were investing heavily in London, and 2008 came, and that was then my foray into property entrepreneurship. And we opened a property management business in London, managed to sell that out 3 years later to one of the biggest property management companies in Southwest London, and then moved back to South Africa, and now I live out in Cape Town. And then continued the property investment side as well as property entrepreneurship. So I have a national business in property, national property business that I'm managing director of, as well as a property investment portfolio in London and in South Africa. We continue expanding. So that's a bit of my story.
Wonderful. Thanks, Grant. Great having you on the show. Kavi, I see you hiding behind over there with your co-workers. Another day, so Kavi. Can we see you?
Let me here I am, Neil.
Short pants on?
No, my short pants are on, Neil. Sorry for that, eh?
Right, Kavi, please introduce yourself.
Lekker. Thanks, Neil. Thanks, everyone. Great to be with all you guys. So very shortly, my property journey started at 25 when my dad's property, commercial property, came for sale, and I sort of saw a little bit of an opportunity. I've just done all my Hannes Dreyer courses, all the courses just before that. So I'm not a property coach, maybe just to put that out there. I'm just an investor.
Yeah,
correct. And so today we mostly invest in commercial property, distressed commercial, but I'll come to that just now. So yeah, I basically got into residential during the 2008-2009 slot, literally because I burned in some other spots and we were out of cash and I had to buy and flip a property on a credit card. So that's not what I would invest or suggest anyone to do, but that's literally just started me flipping a couple of properties, 40 or 50 properties during that season. It went quite well. And as time progressed, I just realized there's the only opportunity in my world at least was to scale with commercial. And we started buying the stressed commercial. I was used to the stressed residential stuff. And so I started buying the stressed commercial and hustling and fixing it up. So me and my team just started trying to up the income, which for me was the best or the easiest way to up the equity. So that's what we've done. Yeah, at the moment we enjoy buying distressed retail shopping centers, and I just think it's a fascinating space, and there's so much opportunity. We literally just have to hold on and just make sure we look at the right places. So that's me shortly in a nutshell. Neil, I think just why I love commercial. I literally buy between, after we've hustled and up the income, between 13 and 25% cash on cash return after we've hustled with these properties. And that's me. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Khavi. It's wonderful having you here. And I think you, even though you're not one of the coaches, educators, we can learn so much from you. And we know you've also put together a reality TV show as well called The Deal. In fact, where you actually mentored somebody on a deal. So it was great. Anyway, so nice having you. Sean, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks very much, Neil. Welcome to everyone on the panel this evening. First of all, a quick bit about my story, my journey. I went to the UK at the start of the millennium, 2000, got a job, as Robert Kiyosaki calls it, at a lovely newspaper company called the Daily Mail. Absolutely, yeah. I realized very quickly that, being in a job over there for the rest of my life wasn't what I wanted to do. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys on the panel and in the audience have done. And that really changed my mindset considerably, got me into a position to start investing in property. Like Andrew said, got started on the cheap and cheerfuls up in Burnley. In fact, Khavi, the first property I bought was also on a credit card. So you use that creative financing strategy to buy, refurbish and refinance to repay the credit card. And I had a property producing income. I've done a variety of strategies in the UK, social housing, flips, all around the UK, in fact, Burnley, Liverpool, down in London, been focusing in South Wales for the last 7 or 8 years, where I exclusively now focus on commercial property as well as commercial to the residential developments. In fact, this year alone, we've bought over £1 million worth of property. So first and foremost, I'm a property investor. I think secondly, I'm an educator, and there's a big reason behind that. I've have a big passion in terms of helping other people achieve their goals. My purpose is to light the flame of financial possibility with as many people as I get my hands on. So I believe in life that the more you give, the more you get. And because someone obviously helped me when I got started, I believe that I've been given the gift. I need to pass that on to as many people as I can get to. So I've been in the seminar industry for around 15 years now. I've personally mentored, coached, and taught around 7,000 people specifically on UK property in the UK, Europe, Australia, and South Africa. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen the ugly, both in the UK and South Africa. So I've got some strong opinions on today's topic and really looking into getting involved into our debate.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean. That's a great introduction. Carlo, last but not least, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for hosting us and welcome everybody. And I think my story really boils down to pizza, right? Because it has to be, because, I'm 100% South African, I'm 100% Italian. I came here in 99 thinking I was going to stay here for 6 months. And then you just cannot get rid of me 20 years later. But I'll tell you the story about my pizza, because I started in property. I don't come from a property background. I don't come from a silver spoon background. And in 2000, I lost everything. I came from a Ivy League type of university background, and I invested all my money. It was a lot of money. I lost 90% of my money on the stock crash, on the bubble, on the NASDAQ bubble in 2000. And then for a year, I looked at it and I said, well, I got to find a better way of doing things. And in the meanwhile, I was eating a lot of pizza. And then I met this guy, and I saw that, you know, he was doing two things. He was doing an Italian restaurant, and he was doing property. And he was consistently losing money with his restaurant, and he's consistently making money with his property business. So I thought, well, if I can do the property business without doing the pizza business, then I will be okay. So and that's exactly what I did. You know, I bought my first property in 2003. And, you know, I know you're under pressure, but, you know, I'm the founder of the Property Coach. I'm a local investor, an international property investor. And for me, the vision is quite simple. You don't have to make all the mistakes. I've made a lot of them for you, you know, buying new developments in the wrong places at the wrong price, nightmare tenants. I've got the whole list attached to my background. And, you know, it's really all about helping ordinary South Africans stepping into the extraordinary power of property investing. So great to have you to be here, and thank you very much again. Look forward to get the questions from
Absolutely. Welcome, Carlo. Great having you on the show, and great having all of you, in fact. So let's get into the Q&A, guys. And obviously, as we go along, you know, I'll ask our audience to participate. We're going to do the first round. So, Andrew, we're going to start off with you. Within your network and where you are in the market right now, are you still seeing property investors wanting to invest? And are you still seeing first-time buyers inquire?
Yes, we are, Neil, and we're seeing more of it now with investors especially, and we're also seeing first-time buyers coming through, which does concern me in some way, because you often hear people saying, "Yeah, you must invest now." Well, I first want to say that there is no real right time to invest, right? It's when a deal makes financial sense to you. And it does concern me because I don't believe that we've seen the worst of what's going to happen. So property, like, for example, Neil, looking at a deal here in Edenvale that's worth R1 million. Will it be worth R1 million in 3 months' time? That property may be worth 800,000 Rand in a few months' time. And conversations I'm having directly with sellers, one was with the crash here in Edenvale, and she said to me, "I've got a mortgage relief on my mortgage, but Andrew, in August, when that ends and the children don't come back to my school, I've got no other solution. The only other way is the bankruptcy way, or you know, what can I do?" So I believe that we're still going to see the worst of what's going to come. So when people talk, or when investors come through, or when first-time buyers come through, you know, people always say, buy when the market's low, when it's crashed. And yes, the market's going down. I don't know if the other guys will agree with me, but I believe that we're still going to see a slump. And so my advice I'm saying to investors, look, when is the best time to invest? If there's a deal in front of you and you know what you're getting into, if you understand that property values may drop further, and even rentals, a deal that we're putting together now, we've actually dropped the rent because we're saying, what if property prices drop and the rents drop? So I'm very, especially when you get these young, hungry investors, or I say investors, first-time buyers coming through, it does concern me because they've never been stung before. They've never felt the pain before. So Neil, I'm not exaggerating. Every single week, we're getting emails, phone calls. Sunday, there's about 8 of us going to view a few properties. And so I think my advice to everyone is, if you know what you're doing, you understand what the risks are, buy when it makes financial sense. But first-time buyers, in my opinion, need to tread very carefully, you know, because they don't know what they're getting themselves into, which is, and the last thing you want, Neil, is a hungry first-time buyer. They've got the affordability. They go buy the first property prices tank, the tenant doesn't pay rent, then what?
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't have rent, you don't have an income.
That's the thing, eh?
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I think your prediction is probably spot on, and I think it's some good advice coming out there. Yaku, yeah, so you want to add to that, Andrew?
I was just going to say something, Neil, and also what I'm seeing is, you know, interest rates have dropped, right? And investors are actually running their numbers on 7.25%. That's another mistake. Interest rates have dropped, but interest rates are going to go back up. When? I don't know. My best guess, Neil, is the end of next year. I don't know. Interest rates will go up. So just for people listening, don't always run your numbers on prime today, because they are going to go back up, and they'll go back up to 10, 11%, I think, in the next 12 to, I don't know, in the next year. So just a little tip there for the guys.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew. Yaku, so maybe how do you find the right education to become a successful property investor?
Thanks, Neil. You know, we always say that when you want to invest in property, the first thing that you need to do is invest in yourself, because you need to make sure And as Andrew said now, is you need to invest in yourself, and you need to make sure that you've got the competencies to actually invest. And I think having reputable sources is very, very important in such a regard. When you want to choose somebody to coach you, to help you, to educate you, make sure you've got references. Make sure you're working with reputable companies that's got a good reputation, and that's going to lead you in the right direction, and not lead you in a way where you can hurt yourself. Something that we put a lot of emphasis on, and maybe also to add on to what Andrew said, is when you start building your property portfolio, make sure that you've got that you've got a little bit of fat planned in. Make sure that you've got some reserves. Make sure that you don't push yourself so much to the limits that you actually get to a place where when one thing goes wrong, you find yourself in trouble.
Okay, I think that's very sound advice. Thank you, Yaku. Ezra, what is the number one secret for succeeding in the real estate investment industry?
Thanks, Neil, for the question. So I just wanted to say that that what I think, though, the number one secret is actually people believing that they can become successful. You know, a lot of people think that they need to know the know-how before they believe themselves that they can become successful. So if you're somebody who doesn't believe that you can become a successful investor, and you're somebody that you can become a successful entrepreneur, I think you're going to have a very, very hard time becoming a successful real estate investor. And I mean, you can learn the know-how, you can learn how to do the numbers, you can learn how to do everything, but if your offer gets rejected or something don't go the way, or when the going gets tough, as we always say, then you're not going to go with the tough guys, you're going to quit. So because you don't believe. So I think you must work on your beliefs, very much on your personal beliefs. And the second thing would be working on your money beliefs. You know, to people have very, very bad connotations about money. You know, so if you work also on the money beliefs, I think that's something that is going to be putting you and giving you that edge of becoming a successful real estate investor. Otherwise, I also support what Yaku's saying. You know, work with reputable people. Make sure that you also do your homework. And also, a lot of people, as I said, Neil, before, one thing I did, one of the mistakes I did when I joined your mentorship program was I didn't take action on what you were saying. I was told too many times that I'm smart, I have all these ideas. So I wanted to do things my own way, and I failed. And only the time when I did what you said I must do, I got successful, you know. So that's something I also tell a lot of people who are starting out, or first-time home buyers or aspiring investors. If you're paying somebody dollars, top dollar, or rent in this case, to help you out, at least follow the advice to get successful, because your first success is going to boost your confidence too, and you can be able to take it from there. But it all starts with your beliefs. I think you must work very, very hard on your beliefs to be able to become successful.
Ezra, that's great. I think it's the whole mindset thing, and I think it's such an important point. Thank you. Grant, sure. Now, just recently, I mean, in fact, it just happened now. We've seen, you know, and I mentioned in my introduction that, you know, I've experienced these education providers coming in and out of South Africa, flying in and, you know, with a lot of hype and what have you. Just recently now, there's been a scam where they've used rugby players to promote certain investments, and they sell it up. So, Grant, how can you differentiate between good and bad education providers?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. So I think it sort of leads into everybody's sort of conversations around investing in yourself and you know, spending time researching the guys that are out there, looking at their histories, understanding where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to your gut feel and how you get on with the people that are introducing something to you. You know, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And you know, if they really make it seem simple, that's something else that I really warn people against. You know, oversimplifying the property investment space is probably one of the biggest risks that people have in terms of understanding how to get into the market, how to invest, how to make returns. You know, it is a hard space. It is a space that you need to understand. It is a space where you need to invest in your education, whether that education is with a person or in an online course or in books. You know, you need to sort of spread yourself across the board. But one thing that I do want to advise you is don't rely on one single source of education for what you need. You know, if there's a specific expertise, you know, investing overseas, investing abroad, going through a structure, definitely. But don't rely on a single source, because I think if you put all your eggs in one basket, that's the easiest way to get burnt.
Okay. So Grant, what would you say is the worst property advice you've ever heard?
Worst property advice. So I'm going to go into the education space here. And I think The worst property advice I've ever heard is that you get these no money down deals. It's my favorite sort of anti-advice, and these no money down deals that people talk about. Even though if you dig into it and look under the surface, again, it's this oversimplification of a much more complicated space. I mean, Ezra spoke about using joint venture partners and other investors. That's not a no money down deal. That's just none of your own money into the deal, but you're putting so much money of other people's at risk. So it's important that you understand when you hear this no money down or don't invest with your own money or you can get into property with no money. That's not a reality. That's actually just a marketing ploy to get you in the room to probably sell you a course. The reality is that property needs money regardless of what that structure looks like.
Okay, great. Thank you for that insight. Excellent. Javi, now Javi, you are slightly different from everybody else. You're not sort of in the education space. You're an investor. You're active. You're busy. In fact, you're a student, but you're doing some incredible. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, you really touched on the surface about the commission. Tell us a little bit more about what you actually do.
Okay. Neil, so yeah, Ezra, I just want to say I love your voice. It sounds like David Attenborough every time you speak. Like it just feels like on a record.
Thanks.
So Neil, from my side, we basically look at a property that has potential to create extra income, and I've just found that commercial has a lot more of that. To hustle and I'm like a deal maker, and let's get together. On our last deal, we had 40 spaces in this retail space. So there's lots of moving parts, and you can make a deal with this guy and that guy, and so that's our way to push up the income. And by pushing up the income, we push up the value. So that's in short what I do. Commercial property is valued based on its income. So if you up the income with 30 or 40%, then you up the value with 30 or 40%, and that's the long and short of what we focus on. So.
Have you got an example of a deal that you guys have done? Can you maybe take us through that?
So maybe some of this deal that I was talking about now, it was a shopping center in Leidenburg in Mpumalanga, but it was standing 10,000 square meters, but it was 40% vacant for 10 years. Okay, so it's been struggling.
Wow.
But based on the fundamentals, we knew that we could hustle it and work with it and do it. We basically signed the deal at a specific number based on the income, negotiated a long, I'm talking 10, 12 months due diligence, because the guys were fairly desperate to sell it, put down a deposit, and then during that due diligence period, we basically filled up the entire shopping center. So it's 100% full today. We got mostly nationals in, we've got good contacts, and by doing that, we were able to up the value with about 35, 40, no, probably 40%. Before we took transfer. So by the time we took transfer, the deal has lifted in value and in income, close to double almost actually.
Wow. And I mean, are you getting people involved, or is this yourself and your team just doing these deals? I mean, or is it open for other people to maybe get involved?
So Neil, it's not really open per se to the public, but we have a handful of guys who wants to come in. We're always open to chat with people that we think could be a good match to do that.
Yeah.
What we have seen, we'd rather work with a handful of co-investors in some of these deals. But what we have done in the past is, if someone does connect us with someone with major capital at 10 or 30 or 40 mil that they bring, we give the guy who connects us with the capital also a equity stake in the center. So those are also things that we have structured in the past to bring whoever connects us to other capital. If we don't have capital to close on a specific deal, to also bring in the guy who connects us with the capital in on this deal and give him a sizable equity portion in this deal. No.
Excellent. I think we've got great diversity in terms of property opportunities here. You've got the commercial, we've got the offshore, which is Sean. I'm getting to Sean. So Sean, what are the current challenges facing the real estate seminar industry today?
Thanks, Neil. I mean, it's a question that, if you look at South Africa, you look at the UK seminar market, there are some similarities in the fact that the UK has just been going for that much longer. So there's been a lot more providers that have popped up. But certainly South Africa is going that way. And I think, you know, from my personal perspective, I wanted to just touch on a couple of things. And this is by no means a dig at any of the panelists here today. This is just a sort of generalized sort of overview of how I see the UK market and what's going on there now with a lot of people providing education, as well as where the South African market might be going. Now, I think part of the challenge is a lot of people set up seminar companies for the wrong reasons, and it's very much ego driven. So it's all about, you know, I've got 25 zillion properties, you know, come and learn from me. And it's really based on ego rather than the ability to be able to get the best out of the student who's learning through that particular person. In fact, one chap I knew very well used to refer to the amount of properties had by, used to use the word units. You know, he always had, you know, I have 650 units in the UK. Always makes me laugh, because what is a unit? A bedroom, a kitchen, who knows what a unit was. So I think that's something that you need to be aware of. I think the challenge with a lot of seminar companies is it's quantity driven rather than quality driven. So, you know, it's all about getting as many buns on seats rather than really providing a clear, quantifiable plan and strategy that a student can follow in order to get the success that they're after. You know, I moved back to South Africa. I live in Plettenberg Bay now. The company we started, Wealth Track, is very clearly set up to help people invest in the UK, but understand the investments they're getting into rather than just selling them investments. So that's really our philosophy. And you know, we provide a clear, quantifiable plan. So one of our students, as an example, hasn't been to the UK yet, done her training through lockdown, got her company set up in the UK, got her bank account set up in the UK. The Welsh property market opened on Monday. A lot of you properties that have been empty for 72 hours now. And she's got her first offer accepted. So that's a clear, quantifiable process, and we are very much quality rather than quantity driven. I think a challenge very often is, you know, the advanced training doesn't sort of match the hard sell. So you go into a sort of basic training, and there's a hard sell to go into further training, and the price that is you know, charged for those trainings doesn't necessarily match the value that those students receive further down the line. And I think one final challenge from my perspective is the fact that some trainers don't necessarily have the experience in the property market that they say they have, okay? And as a result, the training they receive isn't quite as good as they thought it would be. So look, you know, there's synchronicity between, you know, what some of the panelists have said over here. You know, giving good, valuable information is one thing. You also require students to go and take that good, valuable information and take action with it at the end of the day in order to produce results. So there is a student element, but certainly what I've seen a lot of in the UK, and certainly now more recently in South Africa, if there are that many people complaining about training, sometimes it is not the students, there's an element of truth in the quality of the training that's been delivered.
Right. Okay, thanks, Sean. I think it's a very succinct way of describing that, and thank you for your input. Carlo, what's the biggest problem with property education, you think, in South Africa? What do you think it is?
Well, I think that, you know, what is really interesting for me, you know, I'm playing the Italian card today, you know, so we talked about pizzas. Let's talk about mafia, okay? Because I think that in South Africa, there is an education mafia. Okay, and we gotta understand that. We gotta understand that the powers to be that are running South Africa, have been running South Africa, and continue to make money, don't necessarily want you to invest in property. You know, what they want you to do is they want you to save into one of their very often quite suspicious products. You know, from funeral policies, retirement annuities, linked annuities, investment trust, unit trust. And as a result of that, you know, we very much starved of education in investing. I think what is really clear to me coming out of the pandemic and even before then is that if you try to reach wealth by saving, good luck, okay? Good luck. You gotta focus, you gotta learn how to invest. And property simply is just a superior way of investing. So try to go to F&B and says, I've got this great business idea, and you know, I need money to do this startup. They're going to look at you and say, that's a wonderful idea. And by the way, come back in 2 to 3 years time when you are already successful, when you've got 3 years of management accounts, and we'll give you the money. while if you're going to do that with your property business, you are likely to get, you know, a significant percentage of money. And still today, very often, you can still get 100% bond, you know, on a number of properties. So that to me is there's a critical challenge. And I think, you know, all the panelists today in different ways are really trying to address the same thing. You know, we got to rebalance education in this country away from calling education that is instrumental to serve the benefits of the financial mafia to education that is instrumental to our benefit and to create generational wealth for us. That's my perspective.
Wow, I think it's quite well put, and I never saw it from that perspective, Carla. But now, what is your best advice to aspiring and growing property investors?
Well, it's actually quite easy. You know, I would say, you know, I said at the start, I'm 100% Italian, I'm 100% South African. And I think anybody that should just get like a passport or an ID should be subject to this very simple test. What's the difference between now, and just now? And if you can answer that question, then you deserve a green book. So my answer to you is, you know, like with the right caveats, you know, like in terms of, you know, investing in yourself and all those the other things. Start now, buy more, sell less. You know, if I never drive past properties that I've sold because it still gives me sort of like anger at the fact that I sold some properties. Start now, buy more, sell less.
Right, that's a real South African, isn't it? Now. Okay, thanks, Carla. Okay, Andrew, I'm going to get to some of the questions here that's come through from the audience. There's quite a few that's come through. So, Andrew, I'm going to put this one through to you from the panelists. And if some of the other panelists want to also comment, then please come in as well. I'm first going to start off with Andrew. Andrew, what do you think is the best way for a beginner to get started in real estate investing?
Okay, it's a good question, I think. So if there's a beginner that wants to get involved in property investing, it's first, before going out there and buying the property, maybe work out, you know, why do you want to get into property and what do you want to get out of property? Are you getting into property because you want to build the retirement plan? Do you want to get into property because you're looking for a second income stream? Do you want to get into the property game because you want to become an estate agent? What do you want to get out of property? First, get that clear. You know, then start looking at your affordability with the banks. Do you have any capital? So I think you first got to identify the end result, the end game. Where are we going with this? How many do we want to buy? What type of property do you want to get into? Buy-to-lets, multi-lets, flipping. There's so many different variables and things we have to think about. And there's things, Neil, that people forget about. What about your structures, your trust structures? Are you buying in a company? Are you buying in your personal name? Who's your team going to be? Have you got the right attorney, the right bond originator? What banks are you going to? There's a whole long checklist, Neil, that one needs to go through. But before we go there, why are we getting into property and what do you want to get out of property? Once that's clear, we can then start identifying what area are we going to be looking at. Are we looking at areas under R1 million? And if we are, how are we going to finance those? And if we do get into trouble, how are we going to get it? What are your two exit strategies? And Neil, this conversation can go on and on and on. But my first thing is, before a beginner gets into property, and this is one thing I've realized, Neil, I always thought that property investment was for everyone. It's my opinion. I don't think that property investment is for everyone. Okay. I've seen it with my own eyes. Do I believe that everyone should have property as a part of their portfolio? I believe they should, but I don't believe that everyone should pursue property full time. Let them pursue their passion. That could be whatever the passion is. And yet on the side, start building up a small property portfolio, but take it slow. Take it one step at a time, but do not go buy that property until you know where you're going, why you're buying it, and how you're actually going to buy it. That's my advice. Eh?
Does somebody else want to add to that?
Can I please add on that?
Yeah, certainly. That's right.
I wanted to say that I support what Andrew's saying about your why. And I also wanted to say, before you even spend any money, I would also suggest that you take advantage of a lot of free resources out there. Like coming to this webinars for those guys who did, I think we must also give them something on that to say, you guys did a good job for investing in yourself. This is a very, very good platforms and conversations that you guys must be part of. There's always live streams that are happening. There's always ebooks that you guys can download. There's a lot of free material, especially for startup real estate investors, that they must do. Just also saying on what Yaku said earlier on about vetting your coaches. Some people also have misconceptions about coaching. They think that the coach is a white knight, somebody who's going to come with a white house and save you, and that's not exactly what's going to happen. People must you're going to have to do the work. The coach is not going to replace the action you have to put in.
Nicely put, Ezra.
So you're not going to get a white knight who's going to put you on your horse and save your whole business or anything like that. So you also need to do the work. And not all students get successful, and that's why your beliefs are also important after you identify your why. After you identify why you want to do it, work on the beliefs too, and try to consume as much content. There's a lot of content out there that we put out weekly. There's Real Estate Investor Magazine. There's a lot of other guys here who are putting out a lot of content. Go read all the stuff, attend everything. As Grant mentioned also earlier on, don't rely on one source. Go everywhere and figure out what works out for you. You might be connecting with different people for different reasons, but I would say that don't expect your coach to become your white knight and save you. You must also put in the work. Your coach is not going to replace your action. You have to put in there.
Wonderful. Nicely put, Ezra. Yaku, do you want to weigh in here? Maybe Carla, Grant, do you want to also add to that?
I'd love to add to that, to what Ezra and Andrew said, also to look at what strategy fits your needs, because one strategy could work perfectly for a certain investor, but doesn't fit another investor at all. Every person's unique circumstances look different. Some people may sit with a lot of capital and they want very passive investments. So the type of properties that they want to acquire, they're not that worried about cash flow, but they want to make investments that they can do with the capital that they have without having to spend a lot of time on it. Other people have no capital to start with at all, and they are going to have to follow a completely different strategy to that what they want to achieve. And then also, as was said, making sure you've determined your why, making sure you've determined what it is that you want to achieve. Otherwise, any road will take you there. If you don't know what it is that you want, you're going to run around like a headless chicken.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think I'll add to that, Neil.
Yes,
I
please
think,
do,
no, I think what Jaco says is very, very clear. Everyone's different. Whether you meet them in a seminar environment or whether you meet them in a one-to-one coaching environment. So it's important to understand what your needs are, what your experience in the marketplace is, what your capital availability is, and then get started with a strategy that's gonna work for you. When I got started, I was living in London, very expensive property. That's what pushed me up north, because for me, the properties that I needed to get started with, the low risk, low return buy-to-lets, was the only way really that I could get started. I couldn't get started where I lived. So I always follow the strategy, okay, and then match the strategy to the area that you're going to be investing in, rather than the other way around. A lot of people tend to think, right, I live in Cape Town, or I live in Joburg, or like Grant, I live in Boksburg, or used to live in Boksburg. Now that means I've got to invest there. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It's got to be down to what you want to get out of property, what your strategy is, what your position is, and then looking for the right area to invest in, and then really taking the action needed to turn the vision into something real.
Great. Thanks, George. Okay, I want to go on to the next question. There's quite a few here. I'm going to ask Carla to start off with this, and it's actually aimed at all of you, the whole panel. And the question is, what mistakes did you each make as a new investor? Starting with you, Carla.
It's more like what mistake I didn't do. Should I say? I think that we tend to forget that it's called the property market, because everything. It's the only thing I remember from a very expensive university degree is that market is determined by supply and demand. Okay, so whether like as an investor, you gotta have a basic fundamental understanding of supply and demand. And the one thing that people do, people jump into buying properties without understanding the foundation of any market, which is the rental market. So if you want to be a successful property investor, you gotta be a rental expert. If you're not a rental expert, you're gonna be a speculator, and speculators get burned very, very often. So that's the key message from me.
Okay, great. Gabi, you're sitting there very quiet behind there, so I'm going to bring you in here. Gabi, you still there?
Yeah, Neil, I'm here. Lekker, here I am.
Good, man.
So my biggest mistake was I'm hiding behind the computer screen. Neil, I think my biggest mistake was probably just not being conservative enough many times. And I think investment is a lot more than just the rands and cents. And there's lots of things to take into consideration. One thing is maybe a more conservative wife that needs to be kept happy and not know you've taken such a massive risk with stretching yourself to this very limit, and then sometimes something doesn't pull off. And I think I've really learned that the very hard way, that you have to be so conservative and assess risk and make sure there's so much buffer, and there's, what if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? And have a plan B in place so that if those things happen, especially on a sizable deal, that you have an exit and that you're going to walk out of it feeling fresh, your relationships intact, and your wife happy. So that's my
right. That's interesting. I've never heard that one before, Gabi. That's great. Great approach.
Happy wife. Happy life.
Happy life.
Come on.
That's it. Absolutely. Grant, do you want to weigh in here in terms of the mistakes?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Carlo here, and understanding demand and supply is vitally important. I mean, my single biggest mistake was made 16 years ago in a hole called Burnley, and it continues to burn me 16 years later. I know Sean's going to have a little smile in his face there, but Burnley, it wasn't a bad investment destination. It wasn't a bad place to go and invest 16 years ago, but the decisions we made, myself, my business partner, Richard at the time, was driven by ego, firstly. It was about the number of properties we could acquire and not good investments, firstly. So ego in mid-20s. But part two was not understanding demand and supply. And when I speak to a lot of people, and I know sometimes it could be a boring subject to really speak about economics, but really, I think it's so fundamentally important to understand the property cycle. And the property cycle really, again, comes down to what Carlo mentioned, is demand and supply. So demand from a rental perspective, demand for that property you're going to try and flip, demand in the area, how many people are there that are really willing to take up your product. It's like anything when you're selling a product, we ultimately creating products for clients, so you need to make sure you've got clients at the back end.
Right, thanks, Grant. Andrew, in terms of the mistakes you made as an investor, do you want to maybe share?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Neil, if I go back to 2005, remember I bought that property 19 years ago. It is in south coast of Durban. I bought it for 160,000. I sold it for about 520 and thought that property was easy. And in 2005, when I moved to London, I had the opportunity to buy a piece of land in Southbroom. And when I went back on holiday, the agent took me there. Southbroom's a very nice area, as you know. But at this stage, I never got the right education. The agent's words were this: Andrew, if you buy this piece of land, it's on a hill with the sea view at the back of Southbroom. So I didn't even look at, buy by the golf course by the sea. This was right at the back of Southbroom. And the agent's words were, Andrew, if you buy this now for 400,000, I reckon I can get two investors to buy the land either side, and they'll buy this from me for like 700,000. I didn't do any research. I didn't consult anyone. The agent was so confident I could buy this property and I could flip it within 12 months and make a few $100,000 that I held in my portfolio for about 8 years, Neil, the biggest debt I ever bought. And the biggest lesson I learned there was I did not empower myself. I had no idea how to run the numbers. I didn't even drive around the area. And it happened to be a family friend. So there was a bit of trust involved there. But there's a biggest lesson I learned is never buy a property if you don't understand what you're buying. And I think that is why property education is so important, is if you don't know what questions to ask, how do you assess what the risks are? But in some way, Neil, even though it was very painful going through that, living in London, having to pay the bond every month, the recession hit, couldn't sell the property, it's actually a blessing in disguise, because it's deals like that, and Carlo talks about this, it's the mistakes we've all made. And it was that one big mistake. I said, you know what? I'll never, ever buy anything that I do not understand the risks. And that's my one piece of advice, Neil. Do not invest in anything if you don't understand it.
Great. Jaco, do you want to add to that? your mistakes? Yeah.
Absolutely, Neil. One of my favorite sayings is that most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a lifetime. And I have seen this so often with property. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I think many of us has gone through is not running at the right pace. On the one side, we sit with a lot of with a lot of clients that we need to push to take action and to encourage to actually move forward. But then I also have those clients that I have to sometimes hold back a bit and say, just hold on a little bit and pace yourself, because you're not running a 100-meter sprint, you're running a marathon. And that is a mistake that I've made a couple of times already, where I forget that I'm running a marathon. And what would happen then is, as Harvey said as well, you push yourself absolutely to the limits, and it takes one thing to go wrong, and you stand the risk of losing everything. So one of the lessons that I have learned through this, and I've touched on it earlier as well, is make sure that you have reserves in place. I live by a very simple principle now, and that is that I want 10% cash reserves on every property that I own. For some people, that is not conservative enough. For some people, that is way too conservative. But I would like to have 100,000 Rand cash in the bank for every single R1 million property that I own. And the reason, or the things that have pushed me to that point, were finding myself in a position where I'm sitting with a lot of property. Things maybe turn out not exactly as I've planned. And now I'm sitting with a cash flow challenge, or I'm cash strapped, or I don't have enough cash. And lessons that I've also learned through this is that you don't necessarily have to save up those reserves. You can access those reserves in many creative ways. You could refinance your property and just put that money back into the access bond, but at least you've got the cash accessible there.
Great, thanks, Yaku. Ezra, do you want to just talk about the mistakes here too? Thanks, great advice there, Yaku.
Yeah, so I'll say one of my mistakes, and I don't want anybody to do the same thing, is if you are hiring a mentor, listen to them. So I just want to say that to everybody. And you mustn't hire somebody and pay him a lot of money and you do your own things. Otherwise, go do your own things and burn your fingers and waste your money. I would say that. And that's something I did. I think that it wasted my time. I lost partnerships because I had to do partnerships because I didn't have a job. And that is one of the mistakes I did, and I don't want people to do it. So if you say, okay, I want a property coach, I want somebody, and you see that they can help you, and you know that they can help you, did your homework, and you get the betting and all those things, do at least what they say until you get the first success. And then do whatever you want from there going forward. I'm not saying you must be confined in their own sort of things that they say you must do, but at least get your first success with them, and then do whatever you want there going forward. And the second thing is, partner up with the right people, man. You need to vet your partners too. You need to be very, very careful there. It also cost me my health. I'm young. I'm very, very young. I'm probably younger than anybody who's here. But it also really cost me my health to be in bad partnerships. So I'm very, very selective of who I work with. I don't just jump into things that I don't understand. I really, really advise everybody to be very, very careful about that. Know each other's values. Know where you guys are going, and try to surround yourself with people with similar goals, values, and who value you also as an individual, and you value them too. So otherwise, avoid some bad energy and try to associate yourself with some good energy there. So that's basically what I would say, and that's the lessons I learned. And I would think that a lot of people can benefit from that if they really, really listen and take that advice.
Wonderful, thanks, Ezra. I think that's fantastic advice. I think you're such a great role model, and to even think like that, I think so well done, fantastic. Okay, guys, I'm going to ask some questions related generally on the market. I'm going to go to Sean because the question is related to the local market, but I want you to talk about the UK market. And then I want to go around to everybody. And the question is, how do you think COVID-19 is going to impact on the housing, rental, and buy-to-let market in Cape Town and Johannesburg? But then I'm going to say to you, Sean, in the UK. So maybe you can start in terms that in the UK.
Yeah, cool. Listen, let me kick that off. First, I didn't have an opportunity to answer that question. So my worst mistake.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the mistakes?
Yeah, no. I'll chuck it in there very quickly. I mean, my biggest mistake probably wasn't asking enough. So, like Ezra rightly said there, if you've got someone on your team that you paid money to help and guide you on your journey, The only stupid question you ask is the one you don't ask. So always ask. And I probably didn't ask enough at the start of my journey. The other thing from that perspective is my mentor really taught me about the value of always having 2 exit strategies. So whenever you go into a deal, have two clear routes on how to exit that deal, not just one route. And the more you have, the more protected you are. So those would be my 2 bits of advice from that side. Now, in terms of the market in the UK at the moment, we've actually pre-pandemic, we had Brexit. Okay, so we've had about 3 years worth of a great word called uncertainty in the marketplace. And obviously that what the pandemic has done has spiked that quite considerably. So Warren Buffett, a very wise man, has said when there's fear out there, be greedy, okay? And when people are greedy, be fearful. And there's a lot of fear out there in the marketplace at the moment, which means there's a lot of opportunity. So to the trained investor who understands the marketplace that they're going to be investing in, people have been pent up for the last 2 to 3 months at home. I know when the property market opened up in England, Rightmove had more than 5 million hits on their website, which is a record for them since they've been around. Rightmove is similar to Property 24. In terms of rental demand, we did a Zoom call with some of our advanced students last night with one of the letting agents we use. The demand at the moment for lettings is massive. So the fundamentals of any marketplace, like Carlo was talking about and Grant was talking about, supply and demand are strong. Property values are dipping, okay, which is great if you're buying for cash flow. Money is cheap, okay. In fact, the base rate in the UK is 0.1% at the moment. So never in history has money been as cheap as it currently is. And yes, there are a lot of lenders that, went back into the woodwork as the pandemic broke, just because of the fact they had to deal with mortgage payment holidays and all that type of thing. But a lot of lenders now are coming back into the marketplace. So money is cheap. The economics are strong. Because of COVID-19 and people being locked up together for a long time, I think there've been a lot of divorces as a result, okay, which means people are moving into rented accommodation. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity out there in the UK market now, with prices still dipping and will continue to dip for a while the market takes the time to recover. Just means that there's more cash flow out there for the experienced investor or the investor that's following that quantifiable process we spoke about.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sean. Andrew, do you want to talk about maybe the Johannesburg market and the effect of COVID on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, like I was saying earlier, hey, Neil, I think we yet to see the worst because people still have their relief on their mortgages. I know of a few personal contacts around here in Joburg that when that relief does run out, and if they don't have the income or the job to sustain it, and I'll be speaking to a few big group agencies like Remax, the group CEO, Adrian. And we all reckon we're about 2 months away or 3 months away before we start seeing the things hit the fan, hey? So I'm also a bit concerned that I think the property prices are still going to tank. People are going to struggle to pay rent. There's no doubt about that. But I think Sean's right. It's the trained investor. If you're a trained investor, you know what you're getting yourself into. I think it's okay. I feel confident going into the market. I'm a bit more skeptical, I guess, for your first-time buyers, not realizing, because I've been through the financial crash. I've felt the pain. I know what it's like to almost lose properties, and I don't want to be there again. So I think providing you've got the right education and you know what you're getting into, Neil, because the Joburg market, even the Cape Town, I spoke to Chaz Everett, the lady that runs the office in Stellenbosch. She says, hey, sellers are still confident. The property price is still up there, but she said, give it a few months and it's going to start dropping. So that's my view, eh?
Okay, great stuff. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just gonna swing so we can cover all the questions here to Carlo, but it's one which, because I know you like Johannesburg CBD, and the question is the Johannesburg CBD still an exciting residential redevelopment destination? Your comments on that, please, Carlo.
Okay, I'm not a developer, I'm a bottom feeder, so and proudly so. And I think that this is the time to buy used properties. Definitely a time to stay away from new properties. But I think that the message that I want to share with people is that we are so fixated on short-term noise that we actually forgot long-term trends. Now, short-term noise, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, it could be 18 months. Who cares? You know, because you're getting into property for a 20-year journey, a 50-year journey, a 100-year journey. Look at Italy. You know, those buildings have been there for 500 years and they're worth a lot of money. So I'm actually asking people to reflect on 3 things, okay? 3 fundamentals of supply and demand. Number 1, mass urbanization. Is mass urbanization going to change as COVID-19? Highly, highly unlikely. In Gauteng, 6.5 million people in 1996, 13.8 in 2016. So mass urbanization, is that going to change? No. Number 2, rising cost of buildings and new development. Is that going to change? Likely not. That is big supportive to the market. Generation rent. Generation rent, they don't want to own things. Thanks God for that, because we are there to fix their problem. We're going to give them the experience and they're going to pay for their experience. So let them be blessed, generation rent. So these are 3 things to say, you know, stop being fixated on what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Start focusing on what the market is going to look in 10 years. And it's guaranteed that the property market is going to be very healthy in 10 years. And if you haven't bought now with the right experience, the right knowledge, the right everything, you're going to regret it.
Okay. Ezra, you want to add? Yes, I was going to actually ask you, Ezra. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say with regards to redevelopment in the CBD, I'm part of the Inner City Partnership. And that's like a group of companies in the inner city. I think last year alone, there was a couple of units that came on before the COVID. I know some of the guys are having a hard time right now there, but I think they're going to pick up quite very well after this. Things are getting better right now because of the COVID thing is, you know, easing out or reopening the economy. So there was like a lot of units that went up there, like around 5 to 10,000 units that are new units that went in the CBD last year alone. And there's still more units that are coming up. The guys who are asking about redevelopment straight, I would say that for people who are looking for opportunities that are, you know, linked to the government, linked to the government and what Herman Mashaba was trying to do and what the other people are doing with being able to, JPC, the Joburg property companies and all the other guys in the CBD. Those development and properties are good opportunities for people who are starting out, for people who want to be creative and people who want to be solving problems, because our economy right now is in trouble and the only guys who are going to fix it is us. So if you want to be one of those people who are providing solutions, you can look into that. There are stringent requirements though for you to get inside, but I think that at some point, if you really, really follow through, because only the guys who get successful are the guys who follow through, then you can be able to take advantage of that and become part of the inner city regenerating programs. With regards to funding, there's a lot of funding institutions funding that. There's a lot of people. You can partner up with architects. You can partner up with the younger guys who are coming up too. They can help you do the designs and all that stuff. This is something that is easy to do. I would advise a lot of investors actually who are starting out to have a look into that and take advantage of that actually. But with the right guidance and knowledge, I think you can become very, very successful with the redevelopment. And yes, it is still a place for redevelopment. I think FNB last year was putting around 1.2 billion rand also in the CBD. There's a lot of money that's going inside the CBD, and people are trying to really, really legitimate it because it's in next to all the Norwood places, you know, all the other important places too. It's still a very, very good node for work, for a lot of other things. I think Joburg CBD is still the future. So you guys must really, really, really have a look at it and take advantage of those opportunities, especially the ones that are linked to the the Joburg property company. They do charge their fees there, but I don't think that is something that you guys can be able to overcome. You can negotiate with investors. So I think my advice is still look into that, yeah.
Excellent. Nice insights there from you, Ezra. Okay, so I'm just going to ask Khabi. Khabi, it's a question related to commercial property. I'm going to ask Khabi the last question, and I think we're starting to run out of time, gents. So what we'll do after we've asked Khabi's answered his question, he's going to go around to all the panelists, ask you to give your wrap-up and closing comments. And obviously, if you want people to engage with you directly, then I know that some of you come bearing gifts and you want to share some of them with everybody. Share the love, share the love. So I just want to get through to you over here, Khabi. The question is, with COVID-19 and more people might resort to working from home, would commercial property investment be lucrative in the near future? Will it still be lucrative? So I think it pertains more to the office market. I think that's really the question around that. And maybe you can talk a little bit about what is happening maybe in the office sector. I mean, because you're hunting in that commercial sector. Do you want to comment on that there, Javi?
Yeah, Neil. So I definitely cannot pretend to see into the future, but I mean, office is a bit of a swear word and has been a bit of a swear word in commercial, with lots of vacancies in Gauteng and all across. So I'm not too bullish on what could potentially happen in the office space. I do think there's going to be a fair amount of vacancy. I mean, we're very cautious on the retail side as well. I mean, we're not 100% sure exactly how this is going to pan out, how many stores are going to close. So we've got a very interesting sort of just way of progressing forward with deals. I follow a guy called Sam Zell quite a lot just to sort of get ideas, but I've learned they call him the graveyard dancer because he gets most of his opportunities from seasons like this. From graveyards that's lying around in the investment space now, and at the moment, I'm hearing him saying certain things of concerns and very concerned about retail and this and that and stuff. But then also I know who he is. I also know that he creates a framework for his own investment strategies in the US, and I would much rather see what he's going to do in the next 5-6 months. Just sitting on the sideline just watching at the moment. And we're a little bit like that, and I do agree with a lot of other people that 2-3 months down the line, we'll have a lot better picture of what the real scope is. So that's my view on.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks very much. Okay, James. So this comes to the end. I want each of you to maybe give us your final thoughts. Going forward. I mean, if you've got some gifts for people that are interested, or whatever you'd like how to interact with you, engage with you. This is the opportunity. I'm going to start off with you, Grant, because you've been quite quiet over there. I don't know if you've been jumming too long over there, but maybe you can give us your wrap up.
Thanks for that, Neil. So yeah, anyone want to follow my nutrition plan? No, I'm joking. So two things. I'll just see a question I just want to answer, if you don't mind, Neil. In the comment section, there's a question from Africa on SJ Capital. My suggestion just there to Africa on SJ Capital is to look into it more, do a couple of reviews on them. My view in my interaction with it wasn't positive, so just a quick answer there for you. And then just on Harvey's discussion around the offices and stuff, I think what everything comes down to is residential, offices, retail, commercial, doesn't matter where you're going. Again, look at the fundamentals that underlying that is that the office space is a really interesting one which was disrupted by WeWork, particularly in the last sort of 18 months. But if you look at the overall model, WeWork even are going to be under massive pressure due to COVID. You can't charge, you can't charge 5,000 or 8,000 rand for a desk and expect to keep your doors open and carry those overheads. So you really need to dig deep into the financials. If you don't have that ability, connect with somebody that does have some sort of financial background and can help you out in that. So I mean, just a wrap there for me is, it's about connecting with people. And if I've learned anything over 16 years of investing in property and entrepreneurship and creating businesses, it's about the people that you interact with. It's not about your product. It's not about anything else. It's about being honest, keeping your integrity, and just connecting with people that align with who you are and the values that you have. And you can build amazing businesses off the back of just interacting with the right people, building relationships with those people, and helping build something together. So I think that's just from my point of view. I did put my Instagram link and my LinkedIn link into the chat for everybody who wants to connect with me. And I just would like you guys to connect with me, because in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be launching our lockdown startup competition, where we'll be the first prize is 25,000 Rand towards a lockdown startup winner. So it's just going to be a competition we have coming up.
Nice. Thank you, Grant. Nice way to wrap up. Yaku, you want to come with your closing comments, please?
Right. I think there's a lot of valuable comments that has been made today. I think there's a lot that we can take away from today's webinar. So thank you to everyone for that. Closing with regards to what we said about where we are at, and I think on both sides, very valid comments being made. Big opportunities that's ahead. A lot of opportunities to venture into, but in the same breath, being very cautious. And I want to go back to what we said previously, is to pace yourself and to make sure that you are that you are not moving too slow or moving too fast. And maybe one last comment that I would like to make is make sure your structuring is in place. Buying property and not having the right structures in place costs a lot of money to fix later on. So before you venture in and start building a property portfolio, make sure that you've got the right structures in place. We've got some great prizes that we are giving away. I'm going to let Carlos speak further on that, but we're doing a joint event next month, which I'm very, very excited about. And yeah, we would love for many of you to attend, and we are also going to give some tickets away.
Great stuff. Excellent. Wonderful. Okay, Andrew, do you want to give your closing comments and your thoughts for the way forward for investors, or some nice savvy advice that they can go away, that they can use?
Yeah, sure, Neil. And again, thank you very much. So I think, you know, we are in uncertain times, and I think the next few months, or the next, 6 to 12 months will still be a bit uncertain. So everything we do, make sure that you know what you're getting into, and especially for first-time buyers, make sure you understand how the offer to purchases work. And Jaco, 100% right. Make sure you're buying with the right structure. And I think for that, Neil, for the first-time buyers, people that have never bought a property, whether it's for your first home or it's for your first investment, because I'm seeing more first-time buyers looking into my first home should be my first investment. What we did, Neil, at the Property Academy is set up what's called the first-time buyer product, where Zach Maeza from Durban walks his first-time buyers, not just through the technical aspect, but the emotions of it. Should we buy now or should we wait? And then we went through things like interviews at Absa Bank, and jumping onto a roof with Marisha Robus, a property inspector. Are these first-time buyers really inspecting the property properly? And taking it through the A to Z of buying a property. And once you have that education, and you've then been to someone like Jaco Grobler, who can then set up the right structure, only then do you go and buy a property. So what I would like to do, Neil, is give 3 of those first-time home buyer products away for free if there's any first-time buyers listening.
Wonderful, great. And then we'll announce those winners. We'll engage with them, give them, and we'll announce it on Monday. I think, Andrew, you can engage with them next, just so that we know. Great, wonderful, thank you.
Perfect, pleasure.
Ezra, would you give us your closing comments, your closing thoughts, or maybe leave some really great advice for somebody to walk away with?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Neil. I appreciate having me today here. So I just wanted to challenge everybody who attended to say, look, if you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and you wanted to look, I could have been, my life could have been better than it is right now. I wanted to challenge you to look at again, because there's 2 types of people who are going to be getting out of this corona and lockdown. There's people who are very, very stressed because of the media, and they losing hope, confidence, and everything. And then there's people who are taking action. People who are like, okay, I want to improve my life. I want to get things much better. I want to see results. I want to build my second income stream. I want to build my portfolio. I want to do something else. So I want you to try to be, part of the second group if you want to, because I've also been in a place where I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I'm not part of the guy I am. I'm still getting there today, and I think that I would encourage people to keep on continuing the same journey if you're still in that place. And another thing is, if you some of the guys who saw what President Cyril Ramaphosa did, I think we saw that they put in around 200 billion rand in the economy, and I saw another $1 billion coming in. And if you don't have that money in your pocket today, that means you still have to work. You still have a lot of work to do. So I would encourage you to not give up, put in a lot of work, keep investing in yourself, keep attending these live streams. And one more important thing is, we've been also listening to our live streams that I've been doing with you since April, and perhaps you read my ebook, or maybe been following my journey as a real estate investor and as an entrepreneur. You probably know my values, and you probably know what I'm about. And I know that you guys are also going to need help, like I did need help when I started out investing in real estate. So I encourage you to check out our ebooks. I think we give out ebooks in the chat box, and I think we also have like a launch course there that you guys can check it out. It's going to be there until like the end of June. I think we're having that on a very discount price that you guys can check it out. And it was a great session. Look, anything else, send us questions. And yeah, I think that's it for me. I appreciate being here. And I want to congratulate you guys for taking action, and keep taking action. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys next time.
Great stuff. Ezra, geez, you become such an inspiring person. Unbelievable. Wow. A wonderful way to end. Thank you.
Thanks.
your closing comments here. I don't know. You're going to stand up in your short pants. I'm just scared. You might
Wow. Lekker, Neil. You're going to tempt me until I stand up. It's freezing cold. I've got a blanket around my waist. So, anyway, so I just want to say, yeah, thanks so much for everyone's inputs. So I'm not a property coach, but I so want to encourage everyone to connect with coaches. It's been such a major part of my journey that I so want to encourage everyone to connect with, with coaches if they don't have one yet. I've had different coaches over lots of periods. At the moment, I've got a guy, Peter Conti in America, coaching me to buy commercial property in the US, which is my current space. So I've always had different people teaching me things. And even a guy like Dolf de Roos, I mean, you've connected me to him. We've had lunch together for a few hours to you. Sometimes he doesn't know it, but he actually coaches me while sitting there. I've had my questions lined up, and in those dinners, I ask my questions. I make sure I learn what I would like to learn from people like that. I think there's so much wealth, Neil, in your network and in the coaches around here. So yeah, thanks for this.
Thank you, Harvey. Thank you. Sean, give us your closing comments and leave somebody with some really exciting sort of advice that they can run away with and take action on.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Neil, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on here and try and empower, the attendees that have been here. And I noticed there's been a lot of people on the webinar for quite a long time. I know we've run over, so yeah, opportunity, and to all the other panelists, great listening to what you've got to say. From my side of things, a very sort of simple advice. The first thing I would say is have a strong reason in your heart why you want to get into property. It's not for everyone, like Andrew said. It is difficult. Do your due diligence on the person you're going to go and get the help from, because I think you need the help at the start of your journey, not midway through or at the end. The place where you're the most open to making mistakes is at the start of the journey. Get yourself educated, get clear on a strategy and a plan, match that to an area. Work your bum off. Okay. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And I always say this to people, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And then at the same time, make sure that you have that idea in your heart that you're never going to give up, because there are going to be twists in the road. There are going to be challenges. Neil, you mentioned, the global financial crisis. I've been through that as well. So the restructuring of your portfolio, do what you need to do at the time to make sure that you keep everything moving forward is 100% correct. There is no secret sauce, okay, to becoming successful. We don't have a secret recipe locked up in our offices over here. Follow those steps, wherever you are now, and it'll guide you towards, I believe, a brighter and more prosperous future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean. It's great inspirational, great advice to take forward. Thank you. Carlo, you're the pizza guy. You got the last word. I mean, have you got pizza for all of us? Are you going to give us all pizza? You got the closing comments.
Well, I think I'm going to talk on behalf of the country, right? Because, I came in 99 and, the country was going to go to the pits. Property was too expensive and all that negativity. And at that time, property prices in South Africa was 180,000 rand. Came 2008, 2009. The country and the whole world is going to come to an end. All the banks are going to collapse. Lending is going to come to the end. And you wake up 5 years later and we are wealthier, healthier, happier than before. So, stay focused on the long-term journey. And there's a beautiful, powerful African proverb which says, if you want to go fast, go on your own. If you want to go far, go with somebody. So thank you very much for hosting us, Neil. It's been an absolute pleasure to share the stage with some very powerful and accomplished property investors and property coaches. Thank you.
Wonderful. No, thank you, Carla. And I want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you for your valuable contribution today. I think it's been a great, insightful discussion. I think we've shared some really insightful stuff. And Andrew Walker of the Property Academy, Yaku Krobla of Prosperity Enterprises, Eza Rossetti of Infinite Property, Grant Smee of Epic, Harvey Fenter of the Tilio Group, investor, deal maker, and reality TV star, Sean Thompson of Wealthtrick UK Investing, and Carlo Mariani of the property coach. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Your contribution has been fantastic. And then thank you to you, the audience, for your attendance and participation today. We hope you got the value from it. For those of you that came late or had to log out early or missed this webinar, as I mentioned earlier, you can view the webinar replays, which will be posted on the remag.co platform. Just go to shows drop-down link, you'll find the REI Talk. Now, we're going to see you at our next weekly webinar under the new Let's Talk Property brand, brought to you by Real Estate Investor and the Elan Property Group, which will be called Wednesday webinar, starting on Wednesday, the 8th of July. So don't come here next Friday because we won't be here. It's going to be Wednesday, the 8th of July from 11 to 12:30. Our first presenter that week is going to be hosted by Derek Watts, and it's going to be unpacking the impact of COVID-19 on the South African residential market and the rental market. I will be hosting the week afterwards on where to next for commercial property. The week after, Derek will be hosting alternative property investments under the Let's Talk Property. On the 29th of July, we're going to be looking at legal structures for property investments, and I will be the host of that one. On the 5th of August, it's the First Time Home Buyers and Investors, also hosted by Derek Watts. And to register for any of these webinars, just click on the link below in the chat box or click on the link on the REI Mag front page of the website. And you just click on register and you can book now. Then there's another important announcement. Don't forget about our half-day virtual property masterclass for first-time buyers and investors, and that's going to be on Thursday, the 13th of August from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock. A lot of the people that are actually on this panel today have been invited, so we encourage you to please to register for that event. So Remag and Elan Property Group are hosting this virtual property masterclass hosted by Derek Watts and Ipaleng Bakari of the Motsing Property Group, and we have over 60 expert speakers, 16 hours of property investment content and education. So we're going to do breakaway rooms into specific areas of investment. And so it's not just going to be one centralized, we're going to have plenary sessions and breakaway sessions. It also includes a free digital property investment guide, plus an opportunity to become a member of the Property Wealth Network with incredible benefits for the buyer and investor. This is a free webinar, people, so please sign up quickly. We've already got almost 5,000 people signed up, and we only can host up to 10,000. So register to click on the link on the chat box below. Don't miss our first in a series of life-changing and educational webinars. Then that brings us to the end of our webinar today, and we want to thank you all again. And I would like to end off with an inspirational quote from Jack Welch, one of the greatest business leaders of his era, and who I met in the United States in 2013 and who inspired me as well. He's also one of my mentors, and he said the following, and it pertains to everything that we've been talking about today and our panel has been talking. Before you are a leader, success is about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. So on that note, this is Neil Peterson of REI Mag signing out of this week's REI Talk. Until our next webinar, Wednesday, the 8th of July, Let's Talk Property at 11 o'clock for our brand new series. We will see you then. Stay safe and have a great weekend, everybody. Lovely to see you. Thank you for being here. And thank you once again to our panelists.